What do I want? Blank sheet of paper. What do I want? And everything else that you're doing in life needs to clear off that page. Second step inside the process is gathering phase. Gathering books, videos, audios, courses, conferences, so that everything begins to line up in the direction that you want to go. All too often what we do is...
Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they drift through days, decisions, even decades without intention. From Drift to Drive isn't just a book, it's a wake-up call. Today's guest, Chris Robinson, international speaker, executive vice president of Maxwell Leadership, and author from Drift to Drive. If you're tired of coasting and ready to reclaim your direction, your destiny, and your drive, this episode is the starting line. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thank you so much, Melissa. So excited to be on here with you today.
Now, you join us today to talk about breaking out of autopilot mode and living with intention. You've trained thousands, led thousands at Maxwell Leadership, and now your new book, Drift to Drive, is shaping up how people reclaim their momentum in work and life. Can you share a little bit about this concept of drift? And it's a word I don't really hear often, but we all know that we do it in our own life. So can you really tell us a little bit about what it is and why it's the silent killer in progress?
Yeah, drift, if we really go back to it, there's a great example that we give in the very first chapter called rumble strips. And, what this is based off of is, back in the 1950s, they introduced a brand new feature to the highway. This brand new feature to the highway was these little horizontal lines that were cut into a vertical street. And the reason that they began to put that in is because what was happening was people were going into automatic mode, becoming so familiar with the roads. What was happening is they were drifting into oncoming traffic. And so when they began to cut these little strips inside the road, what that did was it gave a rumble to alert them, to cause them to stop the drift. Well, because of that little feature in the highway, that reduced fatalities by 70% just by a little rumble, by stopping the drift. And so my goal, with this book is to really be a leadership rumble strip, to give you that lovingly wake-up calls that, to let you know that, hey, look, you've done well, you've done good, but there's a gap between your good and your potential, and that gap between your good and your potential is greatness, and there is more for you in store. And so that's what I want to do with this book, is cause people from stopping drift and then protect them from the silent killer, what we call complacency.
Ready to lead smarter and invest wiser? On the Executive Connect podcast, we unpack executive strategies for wealth and influence. Hit the subscribe button now. Don't just watch, act. I love it. And I find that you first have to identify where you're drifting. I don't think we necessarily realize in our day-to-day busy lives that we're drifting. So let's kind of start from the beginning in the process. How can someone spot when they're drifting if life just feels always busy and we're always responding to what's going on in our life?
Well, I call busy the new stupid. That is one of the things that, we're busy. And often we have to stop and ask ourselves, not what are we doing, but what are we actually accomplishing? And so identifying that place first. We have inside the book what we call the CAP, the Complacency Assessment Profile. And so we give you an assessment that's free, whether you buy the book or not. You can take this assessment. It's going to help you identify areas of drift in your life, but then also give you actionable steps that you can take. Never, ever do I ever want to speak. Do I ever want to coach? Do I ever want to train without giving people tools and resources and actionable steps to be able to walk away with? And so we help you assess that, but then we give you, those action steps to be able to take. So we do have to define where we're complacent at, and we do have to identify it. Now, this is an area that we talk about two types of complacency. The first one is what we call complacency myopia, which is an optometry term for nearsightedness. So that person that you're talking about is that they are busy as could possibly be. They have no problem taking action. And if you said, hey, are you complacent? They would say, absolutely not, Chris. I'm busy all day long. I take action all day long. But if you ask them where they're going, they have no idea. All right. They can't see the distance, but they can see the next step in front of them. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have the friend Melissa that is what we has complacency hyperopia. Now, hyperopia is a term for farsightedness. And so they see the big vision. Melissa, they've got the vision board. They can tell you about all the big things that they want to do, but they won't take the next step because they don't know what the next step is. And so our goal is to get that 2020 vision and get clear on what it is that we want so that we can then begin to take those steps to move forward. And so, once we get clear on that, then now you can do it. So most people, if we look at, their goals that they set for the beginning of the year, because I'm pretty sure most of the listeners that you have, Melissa, are goal setters, and they set goals at the first of the year. Maybe they can't find them right now, but they set them, right? And if you look at their goals from the beginning of the year, and you look at their to-do list from the past week, it looks crazy. It has nothing to do with where they said that they want to go, and that's where we get confused. We get caught in the drift of making these automatic decisions of being busy every single day.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such an interesting piece. So one thing I find personally is when the pandemic happened, I think it made me personally stop and ask myself, what now? Why now? And had me reconnect with my why. So once you've named the area that you're drifting in, and we know, it's nearsighted, it's farsighted, what's someone's next move after they know which way they're drifting? Yeah,
so we have a 7-step framework that we teach inside the book. And, once you identify that place of, okay, I'm drifting here, how do I get this drive back? How do I clear the plate? Well, it's first of all just asking a simple question of what do I want? What do I want? Blank sheet of paper. What do I want? And everything else that you're doing in life needs to clear off that page and ask yourself that question. But then the second step inside the process is gathering phase. Now, the gathering phase is really about gathering information that you need to move in that direction. So in that, we talk about gathering books, videos, audios, courses, conferences, so that everything begins to line up in the direction that you want to go. All too often what we do is, I've got a book on this topic. I'm watching videos on this topic. I'm listening to an audio book on another topic. And what happens is we're busy. We're trying to learn. We're trying to grow, but it's fragmented. And so we don't get the movement that we want because we're not actively engaging in layered learning where everything lines up in the direction that we want to go. So that next stage is gathering.
This episode is brought to you by Summit Ventures. If you're an accredited investor, Summit gives you access to one of the greatest tax advantage opportunities, direct ownership in oil and gas. Their projects deliver what they call the triple play: cash flow, equity growth, and powerful tax benefits. And here's the best part. These investments qualify for 1031 exchanges. That means you can roll gains from real estate into energy while deferring capital gains. To learn more and get a free white paper, Oil and Gas Demystified, just visit www.summitven.com/executive connect. I love it. It's almost like training like athletes would train at a sport, right? You really, as you're telling me this, I'm correlating it to sports because they very much have a plan, and all the exercise lines up with their food, lines up with their position on the field or whatever sport they're playing. So, I think of it, intention needs urgency to become an action, right? So we have to, get all the tools, line up all the resources, and really build systems to drive those behaviors. So let's talk about sustainability and how to keep that fire burning, ongoing without burning out. I know a lot of times we, are excited about our goals. We're excited to hit the road and turn our intentions into something meaningful. And we're good for a couple of weeks and then we burn out. So how can one keep that fire going without burning out?
Yeah, well, it's a real simple philosophy that I teach, and it's a two-step process. Because what most people do is they do get excited and they try to do too much out the gate, and then they burn themselves out or they stop. So, two-step process looks like this: learn a little bit, do a little bit. Learn a little bit, do a little bit. And so this philosophy really started for me years ago when I was wanting to become a coach, speaker, and trainer. And, this was one of those things where I had made my very last investment to get inside of this certification program. And so I had given these people all of my money, Melissa, ALL. I had given it all to them. So what I wasn't going to do was give them all of my money and then a little bit of my trust. And so I knew that if I was going to be successful in this, if I was going to make this work, I needed to intently follow directions. And so I began to really implement this process of learn a little bit and do a little bit. And what that looked like was that I would watch a video of what the instructor would tell me to do. They would say, go and do this. I would pause it. I would go and do it. And then I would come back to see what I had to do next. That's how much I trusted the process. That's how much I, said, hey, look, I'm going to learn what they said, then I'm going to go do it. Not watch every single video, listen to every single phone call, read every single book. No, it was, I learned something. Here's the action that they said take. Go and do it. And then come back and learn some more. And as you use that two-step process, you move further towards your goals. But if you just stay on that learning side or that gathering side, then you'll be stuck with just a lot of information and no forward movement. So learn a little bit and do a little bit.
It seems so rudimentary, but I, as one of those people that when it says stop the video and do a thing, I just let the video keep playing, or I just flip the page and keep reading. When I made that pivot, it was so different. And it seems so basic that somebody's telling me, and I can't remember what video it was I was listening to, but somebody actually said, no, really, stop the video. And so it was that time I had to have somebody tell me a second time to stop the video for me to actually do it, because I find that motivation is unreliable. And it's funny, I've been to some of those training seminars where you become like a motivated idiot. If systems aren't installed regularly, whether it's, learn a little bit and do a little bit, if it's a 15-minute exercise attached to a goal, it's small daily bite-sized movements in training. And at some point it becomes easy to do, right? It just becomes consistency, right? I'm like it's just consistent. Something like a journal win. I journal in the morning. It took me 10 years to actually do that. 10 years to just journal first thing in the morning. I start out with the intention to journal, and then my day would get started. A client would call, kids would come in the room. But once I blocked it out, it's amazing what you said is so important. Learning a little bit and doing a little bit. When that action is consistent, it compounds and compounds and compounds where you don't even realize you're doing it at some point. So I love that analogy.
Yes, indeed.
So tell me this, is there one habit that you do? Is it something like learn a little bit? Is this like a morning exercise? Is this something you do morning? What's the prescription for the learn a little bit, do a little bit?
Yeah.
Orders.
Yeah. When it comes to it, every single day that we're learning, and I think that's the mistake that people make, is trying to treat every day the same and doing a habit in the morning. So whatever your goal, your dream, your vision is, it's real simple, is that every single day that ends in day, do something to move towards that goal. It doesn't matter if it's in the morning. It doesn't matter if it's midday. It doesn't matter if it's at night. But at some point in time, do something to move towards that goal. You're an athlete as well. My son loves baseball. We just got back from Cooperstown, New York. He was played baseball there for 2 weeks. And so before we went to New York, he's been hitting, balls out of the park in practice, but he hadn't hit one in the game. So he had a goal, and we do this in the off season. We do this when preparing for tournaments, is I begin to have him journal daily. And daily, what he has to do is every single day he has to read something on baseball. Every single day he has to watch something on baseball. Every single day he has to hit. Every single day he has to throw. Every single day he has to field. And so what we'll do is, hey, there's 30 days to Cooperstown. All right. And he wants to hit a home run. That's the goal. That's the vision. And so we have him journal each day. Did he do one of those 5 things inside there, or all 5 of those things? Doesn't matter the time of day or when it happens. Just we got to do it sometime during the day. Well, what begins to happen is he's building up this habit of consistency, but then there's a track record to look back at and say, hey, this is what you did in order to get there. Because if he gets to Cooperstown and didn't hit a home run and he didn't do anything leading up to it, well, you can't be mad about the results that you didn't get from the work that you didn't do. Now, I mean, this is you got to get this, kid. And so he does this and he moves up to it. But here's the catch, Melissa. There's also a great piece of accountability there, because on the days that he doesn't do it, it's okay. But he's got to write one simple phrase. And I believe that if adults would begin to have this level of accountability with themselves, that they would move a whole lot further faster. So if he doesn't do any of those 5 things in that day, it's okay. There's no shame. There's a full grace. There's no problem at all. But he has to write out one sentence. I did nothing today. Okay, he's got to write out this sentence. And let me tell you, that's the hardest sentence on the planet for him to write. And he will sprint out that door at 10 o'clock at night and say, hey, I'm getting my hitting in. I'm going to go read right now. He can't write that phrase. But what we're doing is we're creating this track record. We're creating this rhythm, this routine on a daily basis that says every single day that ends in day, it doesn't have to be an hour, doesn't have to be 2 hours, but just we have to do something daily in order to move towards it. And so he did that for those 30 days. Excited to say he got to Cooperstown. He had 2 grand slams and 1 solo home run in Cooperstown, but we got something to point back to help him get there. So.
That is such an important point. And I had a similar father. He would make me do a similar thing. And, I grew up in Michael Jordan was one of my all-time favorite athletes. And I learned this from my father, similar to how you taught your son, is he mentally works through his game before he plays the game. And it's writing, it's watching, it's doing. And my father was similar. He would say, how you play in the game is how you practice is how you play. If you come bringing 50% effort because it's just practice, when you get to the actual game, you're not going to be able to bring the 100% because you've only trained for 50%. And so I think that's such an important piece of advice, is writing that down. Nobody wants to write down that they didn't make something happen. And if it's 10 o'clock at night, my dad was similar. He made me go do it, or he made me double up the next day. So if I had to get 10 push-ups in every day and I didn't do 10 on Monday and I didn't do 10 on Tuesday, on Wednesday I was doing 30, and nobody wants to do 30 push-ups because 10's a whole lot easier. So I think you're spot on. It's these small micro habits that we're creating and teaching our children, and the outcome is so beautiful because you really can achieve all that you want when you set these intentions. And I love that you use that example. It's so important to teach our children that as well.
Yeah, but the principles and what at the end of the day, I'm teaching the principles in the sport because those principles transfer to business. They transfer to the career. They transfer to relationships. And so if it works with the game, it works with life. And so that's the most important thing. It's like, I don't care if he doesn't do it. Hey, look, I don't care. But what I want him to pick up more than anything is I want him to pick up the principles that these apply in any area of your life. So whether it's in a sport, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your relationship, these principles, they work day in, day out, regardless of what you're trying to achieve.
This episode is sponsored by Texas Freedom Fund. If you're an accredited investor looking to protect your purchasing power, reduce taxes, and own real Texas energy assets, listen up. The Texas Freedom Fund invests in proven oil and gas projects in the Eagle Ford Shale with no debt and strong tax advantages like intangible drilling costs applied against active income. Minimum investment is $25,000 and the sponsor invests right alongside every single deal. Learn more at texasfreedomfund.executiveconnectpodcast.com. Energy, opportunity, and Texas grit working for your portfolio. Yeah, when it stays in your head, it's hard to get it out of your head, right? When you're constantly thinking baseball and grand slams and home runs, they just happen, right? And I know a lot of times people, I was one of those people that are like, oh, this is woo-woo. This is too woo-woo. This is I'm going to think my way into a grand slam. But it happens. It happens when you have it in your mind that I'm going to swing. I have, the base is loaded and I'm up and it's my turn to hit. If I get up to that plate and I've trained for it, I don't question if I can do it. I just get up and swing because I've practiced the swing. But if I haven't practiced it, I get up and I go into this negative role play. Oh gosh, I'm going to strike out. Bases are loaded. They're going to, get a double. I think we go into that part of our brain that says we can't, the fear, I'm going to call it the fear factor part of it.
That's correct. Yeah. And that's the dominating thought that holds people back from moving forward. I mean, we always move in the direction of our dominant thoughts in life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You consistently move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. And so the underlying, problem with any type of goal that you have, it typically is fear. And so it's the action that you do take will help resolve that fear. And, there's fear of failure. There's fear of success. There's many different types of fears, but action is always the resolve for that.
Yeah, 100%. And I always say, a lot of times when I speak, people say, well, you're just better at these things, or you're just better at that. And my response to that is I've just practiced more. All of us start from ground level zero somewhere, right? None of us wake up and are great at whatever we set out to be. We have to put the practice in the work, and behind the work is where the real win happens. And so anybody can, be, do, have what they want, but it does take work, unfortunately, right?
And the work never stops. The work never stops. Even when you get good at a particular skill set, that's what this book is really trying to cure, is that, okay, yep, you did do the work from zero. You were bad, and now you got to an 8, and now you can consistently do it. And that was really, the impetus of, the book From Drift to Drive, was that I had caught myself in a drift as a professional speaker. I was actually at an event. I was invited to go speak in Cambodia, and it was only 2 speakers on the agenda, myself and John Maxwell. So from a speaker's perspective, it's kind of a big day. I mean, he kind of hanging out with one of the top speakers in the world, and it's only him and I on the agenda. We're speaking for 2,500 people. Moments before that, early in the morning, and John Maxwell and I go and meet with the president of Cambodia, and I mean, we're just having a great time. And I go and speak at this event, and things begin to go wrong. I'm speaking with an interpreter, no big deal. I adjust and I get over it. I'm a pro. I begin to, remove the slide, advance the slides. They're not working, and it's okay. I'm a pro. I know how to handle this. And then when the slides finally come up, Melissa, usually speaking internationally, you got English slides on one hand, and then, the native language on another. It didn't work that way in that country. It was all jumbled together because their language had to go on top of the English language. So that looked like a mess. But through all the stuff that went wrong, I navigated through like a pro. And then at dinner time, I get with John, and I'm sitting there with about 5 other people. And, I said, hey, John, give me a little bit of feedback on the talk today, because when we're done speaking, that's what we do. We sharpen each other. And when I'm around other speakers, we'll dissect what we're looking at. And so he begins. This is John Maxwell, the number one speaker, guru in the world. And, I had a line of people afterwards tell me how great it was. But now John is here giving me feedback. And he starts off with one thing, and we eventually get to about 10 things. that he said that I needed to work on. And then the table, Melissa, the table of nobody that was speaking on stage began to jump in and give feedback, and they're giving me feedback. And now I've got this full list of things I need to work on. And you can only say 2 words at that point in time. It's thank you. Okay. And I go back and I take a look at the list. And here's the thing, Melissa, is that there's not one thing on the list that not John Maxwell or anybody at the table told me that I didn't know. But what happened was I had not prepared for that presentation like I did many years ago. You see, there was a time where I was really just honing in, shaping in. I spent more time preparing for a Rotary Club meeting, at 7 o'clock in the morning for, a few people than I did with 2,500 people in another country. And I found myself and I went, oh my goodness, I'm in a drift. I was like, I've got to wake up. And so what I did was that was a rumble strip that got me back active and engaged on the very thing that I'm known for, good at, that drifted. Even though I had done it many, many times, I went into autopilot. And so it happens in all the areas of our life, even when we think that we're good.
And that's such a blessing. And I love that you have the relationships with those people to provide the feedback. Because sometimes I think we do get into these drifts, parenting, being executive, speaking, leading teams, whatever we're doing in our life. And you need to have those relationships with people and peers and significant others where they can come to you and say, hey, Chris, next time you should practice this, or hey, Chris, because you've created that relationship and that safety to come forward and share that inside that relationship. And it's such a gift, right? I think a lot of times when people give us advice or feedback, we go into victim mode or, we're critical or defensive or whatever the words are. But the truth is, looking at that is a blessing. And I bet, and I'm just guessing, but I bet from that date, you're an even better speaker than you were because of that information. It opened your eyes to become even better than you already were.
Yeah. And I mean, Melissa, this was just a year ago. This was just a year ago that happened. But what that did was that kicked my focus back in gear. So again, back with speaking coaches. I actually started working with Michael Jr., the comedian, for him to really kind of look at some of the humor and the things that I used inside my talks, working with Roddy Galbraith, a speaking coach, and just really got highly intentional again, going back to books I had read years ago to really sharpen the axe to make sure that, hey, look, this is a gift, a skill, my profession. I can't just go on autopilot and think just because I'm giving reps every single week that this is good. I have to continuously focus on getting better at it. So I love it. It did. It kicked me in the high gear. I hit that rumble strip, Melissa.
I love it. Now let's talk a little bit about your, working with and speaking with John Maxwell is a very big deal. He is, like you said, one of the gurus in the industry. I've been reading his books since I was a young pup and still read them today. Still have some of his great books. Tell us how you got there. Tell us, how did you get to become a world-renowned speaker and coach?
Yeah, so my journey with John Maxwell started, 24 years ago. Started out watching John Maxwell in the basement of a church on a VHS tube TV combo. And so the church was offering a course, and I would go in there and I would watch the videos, and then I would begin to go and apply these principles in the workplace. And in my early 20s, I was able to take John's principles and get promoted on the job. So I had been promoted 5 times in 6 years with the company. That went from 18 employees to about 18 employees to about 800 in about 6 years. And I was number 5 on the totem pole at that organization. And so did really well. But I fell in love with personal growth and development. And then I was attending a conference around 2008. And there was a breakout session where somebody said these words that I had never heard before in my life. These people get paid to speak. Now, it was like fireworks went off, Melissa. It was that moment in the movie where it's like there's this, just clarity and vision. The mountains part, the clouds part, and I'm going, oh my goodness, you can do this for a living. And then now it was in my head. I had a clear vision. It was in my head that this is what I want to do, and then I set off on that direction. Every sales meeting became a motivational seminar. I began to do workshops at the company I was working for, participating in Toastmasters, and doing everything I could to work on the skill. And then in 2011, John Maxwell offered certification for the very first time. And so I was one of the very first people to be certified with John Maxwell in 2011. I built a business utilizing the Maxwell tools and resources. In 2016, they hired me to be a teaching faculty member. In 2020, they asked me to become the vice president of the organization, and I've been in that role since. So it's been an incredible journey from press and play and watching videos on VHS to flying around the planet, meeting presidents with John Maxwell.
I love it. It's such an amazing journey. It's amazing what speakers are being paid these days for an hour of their time. It's really amazing. I recall watching Jim Rohn and Anthony Robbins and John Maxwell thinking, wow, these guys are so amazing. They can put things so easily into words. And one thing I love about speaking, it's just constant practice, constant repetition, that you just get better and better and better. And so I love that you shared your journey with us. I want to get, in closing, any final thoughts or anything you want to leave with our listeners that we haven't touched on today?
Yeah, when it comes down, to life, I really think that, the easiest thing we can do is get crystal clear on what it is that we want. You see, every single time that you've been crystal clear on what it is that you've wanted, you've got it every single time. And it's the evidence of that is the shirt on your back, the watch on your wrist, the shoes on your feet. At some point in time, you said, hey, this is what I want, and you figured out how to make a way. That works with the small things. It also works with the big things in life. But you just have to learn a little bit, do a little bit, and move towards those goals.
I love it. Such good advice. Okay, now if we're going to go back and ask the younger Chris, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, man.
When you were just starting out in your career? Oh,
gosh, read. Now, I would love to tell you that. I would love to give you a whole lot more insight around that, Melissa, but it was in 2008. I had the opportunity to have lunch with a billionaire. I asked him one question. I said, what's the greatest thing that would make the greatest impact on my life? Without any hesitation, he said, read. Now, in that moment, just like anyone that's listening, going, okay, great, that's great, Chris, read. This gentleman said to me, he says, Chris, I attribute my billions of dollars to reading over 5,000 books in my lifetime, and at the age of 27, I was an illiterate bricklayer. And at that moment, I began to read. And so if I said one thing that's made the greatest difference in my life, and I've read over 1,000+ books, the one thing I would say that would make the greatest difference is read, and read a lot. That's it, Melissa.
I love it. There you have it. Now, Chris, tell our listeners where they can connect with you, where they can find the book, and really, for anyone who's ready to stop drifting and start driving, where can they grab that book?
Yeah, so you can get the book on Amazon. We've got a lot of incredible bonuses. If you go to drifttodrivebook.com, pick up your book from Amazon, put your confirmation information into that one, and then you're going to get a series of bonuses of over $550. And we're just excited to add value to you and help you get from where you are to where you want to go.
There you have it. Thank you so much for being here today, Chris, and sharing your time and your knowledge with our listeners. That's the Executive Connect podcast.